television. Now let's take a look at another dimension, on the program. The Central Bank of Nigeria has stated that excessive borrowing by the federal government from the CBN's means and ways advances window could frustrate CBN's monetary policy. The Apex Bank said when the federal government exceeds its revenue, the CBN finance government deficit through ways and means advances subject to the limits set in the existing regulations, which are sometimes disregarded by the federal government. As of the first quarter of 2015, the country's public debt stood at 12.06 trillion naira, a figure that has ballooned to 38 trillion naira as of last September, recording a growth of 208%. Still, the official statistics under-report the actual amount owed. Now, last year, the Fitch Ratings, a global research institution, raised the alarm that the government reliance on ways and means facilities sourced from the Central Bank of Nigeria to fund budget shortfalls to finance its deficit was a major cause of the country's rising inflation. Now, to give us perspectives on this particular topic, we have an economist, Dr. Samson Galadima, here in the studio with us. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
All right, well, let's get a sense of what's going on here. The nexus between this, excessive borrowings that the central bank is complaining and, this issue of monetary policy. How does that, have an implication on it?
All right. I think it was the central bank governor, Emefiele, that said it would be irresponsible of the central bank not to finance the government should the need arise. And nobody is saying the central bank should not finance the government. But there are laid down rules they have to follow. The CBN Act 2007 says, Section 38 to be precise, says if the government has liquidity issues, if it has a shortfall in revenue, the central bank can come to the rescue. But the same law says the help, the financing that the central bank can render to the government must not exceed 5% of previous year's revenue at any particular time. And all the borrowings that the government gets from the central bank must be paid back within the financial year. That if it is not paid back, that power by the central bank to lend to the government cannot be exercisable. That's exactly how it is being put in the act establishing the central bank as amended in 2007. But the central bank has not been doing that. They have been lending, I think in 2020, they lend as high as 80% of 2019's revenue. And they have been abusing that
and
over the years.
Has that been paid back by the federal
It has not been paid back. In fact, it was not even transparent initially. They were doing it as if they didn't want anybody to know initially, until when it was too obvious for them to hide. So it has been accumulating. And on the website of the central bank, you have it clearly stated that the government can undermine monetary policy when the government asks the central bank or the monetary authority to lend it money beyond what is stipulated by law. That is indirectly undermining the ability of the monetary authority to perform its functions. And this thing has been happening. And they have been using COVID as an excuse. But even before COVID, that has been the case. It's not a new thing.
Okay, now, according to research, this has also been responsible for the country's rising inflation. Could you just walk us through how this actually affects us directly as an economy?
All right. According to arguably the greatest monetary economist, Milton Friedman, that inflation always and everywhere is a monetary phenomenon. In the sense that it is produced early, it can be produced early by more rapid increase in the quantity of money than in output. When you just print money, when the printing press in the central bank is in overdrive, yes. You just print money, you give it to the government without increase in production. That is courting inflation. Unless if the only way that you are going to print money and it's not going to be inflationary is when output increases by the same ratio, by the same amount, or even higher. But as long as you're just printing money and giving it to the government to pay salaries, to do things, that's definitely inflationary. And it's not only going to affect inflation, even the value of your currency will be affected. The exchange rate will be affected. Macroeconomic stability will be caused because of that. So the problems are just not too good.
Mm-hmm. All right. Now, when you place that side by the advisory of the IMF, for Nigeria to devalue, its currency further and also raise the interest rate, this morning we're seeing that story on our front pages. How would you react to this advisory? Do you think that it's in the best interest of Nigeria, putting that side by side with this issue?
All right, our currency, to be honest, is artificially, the value is artificially maintained. If you allowed market forces to determine the true value of the currency, that's when you know what the currency is actually worth. But at the moment, the central bank intervenes and is basically pegged. It's pegged, but even for the parallel market that may not be pegged, the central bank intervenes from time to time. So it's basically a pegged currency officially, formally. Then on the parallel market, it may not be that, but it is managed fluid, what we call dirty fluid. That means if the value of the currency reaches a level that the monetary authority is not comfortable with, the monetary authority intervenes. So it's basically controlled. And the best thing, if we want, because Nigerians are not happy when the value of the naira goes down, and it's not, you don't blame them, because for practical reasons, we are basically an import-dependent economy. So when the value of our currency goes down, whether officially, if the central bank officially devalues the currency, or through market forces on the parallel market, we all suffer for it. Whatever we are buying, the prices go up, whether it's machinery or ICT devices, whatever. We are basically dependent. So prices go up and all of us suffer. And even things that are not imported, because of the ripple effect of that, it's the fall in the value affects virtually everything within the economy. So the main reason is because we hardly export anything and we import virtually everything that we need. So the best approach is to find a way to export. We have to be an export-led economy, and if for things that we cannot export, we have to substitute it. And it has to be done in an efficient way. I know the current government is trying to do that with agriculture, but what is our comparative advantage with agriculture? The government is fixated on agriculture. I'm not saying there's anything bad with trying to make us attain food sufficiency. It's a good thing, but you have to strike a balance and you have to look at your comparative advantage. What are you good at? What can you produce in an efficient way without so much money put into, and then the output is not commensurate to what you have put in? And the Nigerians are talented. We can offer a lot of services. We have highly skilled people. We have doctors, we have engineers, we have lawyers, we have so many people that can hardly find jobs. Our unemployment is very high. Why can't we exploit all these things to see how we can generate? If oil is our major source of foreign exchange earning, can't we work on remittances? Thank God for COVID. I know COVID has a lot of downsides, but it also has upsides. So the world is, you work remotely now. Nigerians can work from here and they'll be earning hard currency. That can actually help the value of the currency. That can also help with inflation and so many other things. So a lot of things can be done where there is a will, but sadly I think the will is not there. For now, and we have been paying lip service to diversification. Our economy in terms of GDP is highly diversified. Oil makes up less than 10% of our GDP. But where the issue is when you're talking about foreign exchange earning and revenue. That's what we need to work on. And we have a lot of work to do.
Okay. Now, from your explanation, it seems like we've actually abused the ways and means, financing policy and all of that. What other options are open for us?
All right. The government, we have been running basically a deficit budget for a while now. And it's not a crime to have a deficit budget, but it should only be done when it's necessary. And when you're borrowing, because the deficits are the ones that accumulate over time for you to have a huge national debt. So if you're going to borrow, preferably borrow for things that can actually pay for themselves down the line. If I'm borrowing, let's say, to build a railway, for example, from Abuja to Kaduna, build a rail line from Abuja to Kaduna, how will that pay for itself? I think Nigerians are happy when things are convenient, things are smooth through. Everybody wants that, and we want to make our country to be as livable as possible. But we have to consider the costs, either now or down the line. I saw a study that said building rail lines for conveying passengers may not actually make economic sense, because that can hardly pay for itself. That the best way to go about it is to build rail lines for freight, for maybe conveying goods around the country. Mm-hmm. So we have to look at all these things. If we feel that is not economically viable for the country, we can allow private individuals to do that. I know they may find it difficult. Maybe we can do PPP with private individuals, and they look at how to make the most of it. But just building something, building routes because you feel like it, or you feel it's capital, and at the end of the day, you cannot service your debt, and this keeps ballooning down the line. You have a debt trap. So we have to strike a balance. And also domestic borrowings, the rate of interest may be high, but they do less damage to the naira. But if you borrow externally, and then you devalue your currency, like I remember when the official exchange rate was around 305, 307, and then the central bank devalued to around 379. Actually, the debt just ballooned by more than $1 trillion just because of the devaluation. So that is the cost we have to pay. The rate of interest externally may be lower than what we have domestically, but we have to look at other factors. It's not just the rate of interest that matters. Other things are also equally important. Okay.
Now, where should we be also looking at in terms of shoring up revenue for government? If you look at the 2022 budget now, for instance, and the finance bill put forward, which I believe is signed now.
Yeah, it's signed. It's an act now.
If you look at the finance bill now, are there opportunities, that could see us shoring more revenue for the government now instead of these, borrowings, such that we can reduce the extent to which we actually borrow?
All right. I think we have been saying it. I hope that what we are proposing, what the government is proposing, is practicable. Our revenue, our tax revenue to GDP is one of the lowest in the world, not only in Africa. Even compared to our peers in Africa, we are not doing wicked. We are in the region of 7%. That's what we generate as tax revenue compared to GDP, 7%, right? Other countries in Africa, even in Africa, generate as high as 18%. So, and the government has been looking at that, and they're trying to see if they can actually increase the revenue we generate. They are targeting 15% by 2025. And that's why they want to increase taxes. The Finance Act said they are going to tax sugary drinks, carbonated drinks, right? Even digital companies that may not have physical presence here, but the activities, a company like Facebook, it may not have an office in Nigeria. Well, let me use Twitter, the obvious one. Twitter does not have an office in Nigeria, but we know Nigerians tweet. Millions of Nigerians are on Twitter. People advertise. People make money on Twitter. So they want to tax that. And even big companies that are involved in online trading like Amazon, Alibaba rather. The government wants to see if they can work with those people so that they can remit VAT to them, right? So these are ways that the government is trying to see, even gaming, the betting that Nigerians are involved in. All these things, the government is trying to find a way to tax them. And I think there's nothing bad with trying to tax, but even the taxation has to be done with, you have to look at the economics of it. You don't tax an industry into dying.
Exactly.
So
just like we are seeing in Kano
balance.
now, we are seeing that the keke, tricycle riders, popularly known as keke, are on strike. And that's having a devastating implication already. If you look at the losses that were recorded in just one day, about 300 million naira was said to have been lost, as a result of that. But we'll talk more on that shortly after this breather. Please stay with us.
All right, welcome back. If you are just joining us, you're still watching Daybreak on Trust Television, and we have an economist here giving us perspectives on some of the issues, some of the burning issues, in our economy. So before we went on the break, we're actually giving us some perspectives on some of these issues. Could you walk us through the issue of taxation in Nigeria?
All right. It's a common belief in Nigeria that we are not taxed at all because, and the numbers are there, the data is there. Our tax revenue to GDP is one of the lowest in the world. So government needs to do something about it, and we too as citizens, we need to cooperate with the government so that we pay our taxes. But of course, when you pay your taxes, you want to see results. So it's not just about paying taxes. I believe that Nigerians are patriotic enough to pay their taxes, but they want to see results. They want to see routes. They want to see pipe-borne water. They want to see other infrastructure. They want to see the economy, their cities or their towns become more livable. All these things are important. And the issue is some of us tend to live in denial. because we don't want taxes, and government borrows money, or it compels the central bank to print money, and that causes inflation. That causes the naira to get devalued, and then our standard of living becomes
so
lower.
one way or another, we get to pay for it.
Yeah,
either way.
we have to pay for
either
it. Either
directly or indirectly.
Indirectly, yes.
So you think that this inflation that we are experiencing is a direct consequence of this shortage in revenue by government?
Yes, it is. And it was Milton Friedman that said inflation is taxation without representation. If a government wants to increase taxes, for example, it's going to tell you that, all right, we're going to use the money to do this and that. But when there is inflation, and then maybe, let's say, inflation is at 20%, and what you have, your purchasing power gets diminished, right? Nobody tells you what that loss that you have experienced is being used for. So Nigerians have to accept that we have to pay taxes. And the government said, I remember, I think it should be Finance Act 2019, that the government said we shift away from direct taxes to indirect taxes, like VAT now, where you buy things and you're taxed. I think that one is better because it's not directly taken away from your income. It's indirectly done, so it's not as noticeable. I'm not saying it's not as costly, but it's indirect, because if I buy a newspaper and the tax is inherent in what I pay for, it's not that noticeable. But let's say my salary is 100,000 and the government takes 20,000, it's too obvious, and some people take it personal. I'm from Gombe State, and I remember the government imposing some taxes and asking people to pay for health insurance, and the people are bitter, they are livid about it. But if it's inflation, people just growing, but they will hardly, because it's not directly, the 100,000 is still coming. It's just that if they could buy something for 1,000 before, now they have to pay 1,000, maybe 5 or 1,002.
But are Nigerians really aware of this, of withdrawing tax indirectly?
I think majority of Nigerians may not know. Majority may not know, because even the educated ones, they may not be so keen about such things. So it takes somebody that is knowledgeable, it takes enlightenment for people to realize the price they're paying for certain behavior, and that it's better sometimes that you pay taxes and you demand accountability. There is nothing wrong. There are some countries that tax 40%, they tax 30%, right? But you as a citizen, you have to demand accountability. You have to ask them, all right, I've been giving you this amount of money, I cannot see it. You have to ask and find out how the money is being used.
So in terms of doing that, how can government go about doing that in an economy like ours that is largely informal? How do you go ahead taxing people? Yes,
that's actually a weakness. We need to make businesses to easily register. Nigeria is one of the harshest places to do business, and maybe that's why, according to not by me, according to the World Bank, ease of doing business. I remember the Vice President and as well as his committee has been trying to help improve Nigeria's ease of doing business. But let's be honest, it's just cosmetics that they have been doing so far. We're not ready to do the right things. If we make the business environment really friendly, and you know that if you're not registered, you not get those benefits, everybody will try to register. And you make it very seamless to do that. But when you know that informally pays, so why should I register? Well, 65% of Nigeria's economy is informal, 65%. So the larger chunk of the economy is informal, and you can hardly tax an informal economy. The best thing is to make it very easy for people to register. If you can, if possible, make it almost free. Look at what the telcos did. When they came, how much was SIM? But they realized that by having the price of SIM really high, it was a deterrent. It stopped people from acquiring lines. And they said, all right, it's better if we make it almost free, and then we will make up for that by people recharging their phones. and it has actually been better. So I think we need to think along the same line. I registered a business some 4 or 5 years ago, and it cost me a tiny fraction. Recently I registered another one. It's almost twice what it cost me 3 or 4 years ago. It shouldn't be. It should be very easy for everything to be done.
Aside registering, aside registering business, there are other factors,
of course,
isn't it? That,
yes.
That helps businesses run and all of that.
Yes.
For instance, the issue of electricity, has been an age-long issue that we've been talking about in Nigeria. Just this morning, we are seeing on the front pages also how discos are owing federal government, in the billions, and all of that. And our analyst earlier on said that, look, at the end of the day, if you check it, most of the people that owe that money for the discos are government institutions, and all of that. So how do we reconcile all of this?
I'm not really proud to say this. It's sad, but I think it's factual. Nigeria is not a law and order country. I'm sorry to say this, but we are not people that are very strict about rule of law, and it's not just the citizens, even the government. We know how things are done. We don't adhere strictly to laws. So that has proven our undoing. And it has to start somewhere. It was Chinua Achebe that said, Nigeria's problem is 100% leadership. I think it's 1,000% leadership. If you have a leader that leads by example, he laid down rules and does not for any reason allow any law or any rule to be flouted for his own personal interest or aggrandizement, I think that will go a long way.
Some will say that we have that leader in the president, being the president who frowns at corruption and all of that. But apparently it's becoming like it's beyond just the person at the helm of affairs, in the sense that, attitudinally, there are other things that needs to be done, by Nigerians to actually key into whatever vision the leaders will have. Anyway, it's just
yeah, I understand what you're saying. I know the president has been hyped even before he became president, but I think, I'm sorry to say, it's more of hype than reality, because our situation has not changed. And as a leader, I know you're only one person. You can only do as much, but if you surround yourself with the right people, and everybody around you knows that you don't condone any disregard for rule of law. It was Femi Falana that said, when Buhari was military head of state in 1984, 1985, he obeyed all court orders regardless. But now he cherry picks, the government cherry picks the court orders to obey and not to obey.
What changed in your assessment?
Well, let's not drag that. But again, we need to pay the bills, isn't it? And leadership has to show that example so that other systems can work.
Yes, and as a leader, like I said, you're only one person, but you surround yourself with the right people, and everything should be done strictly based on who is capable, not based on politics or sentiments. I think if we have that kind of leader, I'm not saying it's going to be easy. Nigeria will not just get better overnight. It takes some time. It takes grinding for many things to change. But if we start the right thing, if we set things on the right trajectory, then we begin to see results. And it will only take a matter of time before we actually see big impacts across the country.
Okay, now let's talk economic diversification. There has been a lot of conversation, advocacies on economic diversification. But in your assessment, where are we at the moment?
All right, like I said earlier, our GDP is diversified, highly diversified. The problem has been oil, and oil is less than 10% of our GDP. But in terms of our revenue and our foreign exchange earning, that's where we have a long way to go. And it has been a problem for a while. And we have failed so far at trying to diversify our income, government revenue, and foreign exchange earning away from oil. Oil still makes the larger chunk of these two things. I think for foreign exchange earnings, we can make diaspora remittances, for example. We can encourage Nigerians living abroad to send money to Nigeria, and maybe if we allow them to vote, we allow them a say in the way things are done in this country, maybe that will embolden them to send in money. Another thing is many Nigerians want to leave the country. I know it may not seem good because some people that we need actually in this country are also going, like doctors and nurses. But our unemployment is high. I was discussing with somebody, a medical doctor. He finished his residency and the hospital could not retain him. I had problem getting employment that would pay commensurate to his skill, and he had to leave for Saudi Arabia, and he's getting like 5 times what he would have gotten in Nigeria.
Saudi has taken a lot of our doctors.
Yeah, and so many other countries around the world. So there are people that, like that person now, he's not appreciated here. His skill is not appreciated, and he has gone to a place and he sends in money to his loved ones. And that's good for our foreign exchange reserves. Besides that, capital inflows, we have to encourage investments. I know a Nigerian president will be junketing around the world that they're trying to invite foreign investors. It goes beyond that. I think if I were the president today, I would stay behind, fix things, and you see foreign investments to come in. It's not by going around. People are reading news about insecurity in Nigeria, high inflation, foreign exchange instability, and macroeconomic instability, and you think by talking to them, they will ignore the facts and listen to you and come and invest. People will not do that.
So all these affect, people actually investing.
Okay, finally, just briefly, this just pops up. And I'm thinking about, this is 2022, it's eve of a general election. So in terms of budget implementation, where do you see us? How far do you see us going? If you look at, some of the indices, usually eve of elections is overtaken, by politics and all of that.
All right, like the 2021 budget, the minister said, I think the president should be my source, said they had 100% releases. And that's for capital expenditure now. For the current, the minister said it was 70%. Some people were questioning that because they have not seen results, but the minister is the authority for now. I remember doing an interview on Radio Nigeria, and he was asking me that, which one should they believe? I said, the minister for now. Unless if you have a superior authority, it's not just sitting down in your home to write off what the minister has said. Maybe you call a superior authority or an authority on a par with the ministers, right? So we have been hardly implementing our budget fully. And this year in particular, I think things would get overtaken by elections. Tinubu recently told us that he had told President Buhari that he'll be running for office, and so many people are also warming up. So I think that would be the major determinant for economic activities for this year. I know the current president is not running for re-election, so he may likely concentrate on governance, right, instead of campaigning because he's not running. But directly or indirectly, the governance will be affected by the politician. And besides, in American politics, when you're about to go, they call you a lame duck president. So you don't have that authority and power as much as if you had so much time. So the president has basically this year to implement a full budget year is only this year. So by next year, he can only do it partially. So if I were him, I'll make the most of this year, despite the electioneering, despite the politicking. I think this is his last chance to make the most of his tenure as president.
Okay. All right, thank you so much, Dr. Samson Galadima, for joining us on the program today. We look forward to having you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, there you have it. They're always coming through with analysis on perspectives on national issues. Daybreak draws the curtain here today.
Quite very interesting discussions today.
And if you have missed, you can always catch up on our social media handles and also connect with us on our YouTube. You can always watch this live on Facebook and also live on YouTube. Thank you for watching. Join us again tomorrow for another time on the program. My name is Ibelia. Bye for now.
And I'm Zainab Bala. Thank you for watching.